Hello, my name is Eden D'Souza, and I am the Stewardship Coordinator for the Roman Catholic Diocese of Calgary. Welcome to Faithlife, a stewardship forum on faith. Session 4 of Faithlife is titled Succession in the Church, Calling Young People to the Faith. Over the past 2,000 years, from generation to generation, the faith has been passed on, and it is no different today. We need the young people to carry on the faith. What you are about to hear is what the Church is currently doing to engage young people within the faith, and even as importantly, is what we as parishioners can do to help within the succession of the Church. Please enjoy.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rowena Romero Carlson. And you can blame our priests for this. They've asked me yet again to be the MC moderator for this event, which is organized by the Roman Catholic Diocese of Calgary Stewardship Office. Our primary topic this evening is succession in the Church, calling young people to the faith. With the exception of Father Kevin, all of us here, I believe, are young people. So there will be messages for each of us. No matter what your age, all of us have a calling to the Church and to God. For teens and young adults who are here, thank you for joining us this evening, especially on a Friday night. For those of us who are in the higher age brackets, I thank you too for joining us. Your mentoring, support, and guidance for young people are essential factors in their lives. We must continue to help them lead the path to God with Jesus by our side. Our first speaker this evening is Father James Hagel. Other panel members believe that Father James is the reincarnation of Samuel. The Bible has many references of Samuel as a boy. Now, I'm not saying that Father James is immature, but he does have that boyish, mischievous grin. Even Father Wilbert says that he admires Father James' ability to play games on his computer. Father James was 20 years old when he decided to enter the seminary. He tells the story like this. I was living with my older sister who had just gotten married and had her first child. When they went to the parish priest, Father Jim Hagel, my namesake and cousin, he mentioned that I have what it takes to make a good priest. When my sister told me what he had said, my first thought was, oh, but people say I make a good accountant. Incidentally, that's what I was studying at the University of Lethbridge. I was on my way to a management degree. But the other thought was of a little old lady back in my home parish who grabbed me by the shoulders before I left for university and said to me, "Goodbye, my little priest." I realized that I couldn't just brush this off, and that God was trying to tell me something. With this presentation entitled Genuine Dialogue, please help me welcome from St. Anthony's Parish, Father James.
Tonight, we're talking about succession in the Church. And as you know from our subtitle, we're focusing mostly on youth. However, what I'm saying actually applies to many generations. In my parish, for example, we have many people who have retired and took on ministries. But now these people are getting old enough that they need to hand this on to newly retired people, which for the next 10 years is going to be 65. But this handing on actually happens on a micro scale as well, because the same thing actually happens in families. Parents pass their faith on to children, and children wrestle with that faith as they grow and take it on themselves. For tonight, however, I would like to reflect on some principles of building up these relationships through the lens of my youth ministry as I was growing up. Now, I come from a very small town called Schuler, Alberta. Now, I think 2 of you actually know where it is, and I think they're on my pen. Does anyone else actually know where Schuler is? Well, there we go. I don't think I'm related to you, but we could be. Now, for those of you who don't know, Schuler is a town of about 100 people, northeast of Medicine Hat. And we're down to 98 because I left. And the person I'm talking about, sadly, has passed away. But her name was Antonia Herman. And she was a youth minister in my hometown for close to 30 years. Basically, she ministered to youth, for everybody between me and my parents and the generations in between. Now, I'd like to focus tonight on the way that she ministered and actually showed genuine dialogue in what she did. One of the things that she did was to give us what we wanted. Secondly, she was very good about giving us what we needed to know, even if we didn't know at the time. She also facilitated a great many relationships for us. And lastly, she herself was a wonderful mentor. Now, for giving us what we want, one time I remember we actually went up to Edmonton. Now, I realize that now we can't actually do these trips as well as we can because insurance costs have gone up so very high, but we actually went on several trips as youth group together. And we went up to Edmonton. Now, on this particular weekend we were up, the LA Kings were coming to visit the Edmonton Oilers. And it just so happened a few years previous that a player named Wayne Gretzky was traded to the LA Kings. And it just so happened on that day that we were there watching the game that same Wayne Gretzky surpassed Gordie Howe in the all-time points. Excuse me. In the all-time points in the NHL. And we, because my youth minister, were able to be there for that moment. She knew what we wanted as boys. Now for the girls, they got something too. We actually went shopping at West Edmonton Mall. Now 20 years ago, that was a lot bigger deal because Chinook Centre didn't really exist as it was, nor did Cross Iron Mills or any other big malls that we have here. And so going to the biggest mall in the world at the time was something very special. Now, she also helped us to see in building up our relationships, of helping us see things that we needed to know. On that same trip up to Edmonton, we also went to the Mustard Seed in Skid Row of Edmonton. And there we learned about what the ministry was there to the downtown people. Another trip we came to Calgary, and we saw what happened around the cathedral and all the ministry that happened there. We got to see what it was like for an experience for a boy from a small town that we never had. We saw people that we never knew we would rub shoulders with, but indeed, it was important for us to be there. On another trip, we actually went to Saskatoon, and we went out to St. Peter's Abbey, which is a Benedictine abbey about an hour outside of Saskatoon. And we got to see monks being monks. And what was amazing is these very same monks were driving tractors, just like our dads were, and just like we were learning how to do as well. These monks were a lot like us, which we'd never have known if we wouldn't have went. Now, the third thing that Antonia was able to do for us was to facilitate relationships for us. One of the biggest ways I think she did this for us was through Operation Sunlight, which was our summer camp from our parish. Now, Operation Sunlight, sun spelled S-O-N, pretty inventive, I thought, but we would have these priests that would come be with us for that week of camp. And because of the area we were in, many of the oblate priests came to minister to us, who I think Father Kevin, you grew up with oblate priests as well in your area, right? So they ministered in southern Saskatchewan, in my little corner of southern Alberta. And we got to know these priests fairly well. And even when I came to my vocation story, this is where I'm going to share briefly, I was able to talk to my sister about how the priests that we knew, these same priests from summer camp, Now, the biggest story I remember actually was a story that perhaps I shouldn't remember all that well, but I very do because it was very striking. It was one of the priests was sharing what happened to him one time driving in Saskatoon, and he got cut off on the road. And then he was very unpriestly. But it very much stuck with me, because I realized that priests are human beings too. And so those years later, when I talked to my sister about being a priest, I knew it was possible perhaps for me, because I knew they were human, like I was. And lastly, Antonia was able to be that wonderful example of an adult and a friend, which is what a mentor does. On that same trip to Saskatoon, where we went to the Abbey, we actually had a lot of energy coming back to Queen's House, which was a retreat house in Saskatoon. And myself and my neighbor, we actually had way too much energy to be in a quiet retreat house. And so she was good enough to take us for a walk. We walked around the back of Queen's House and down the river valley and back up, so we burned off a lot of energy. And as a friend, she was able to be there for us, to let us do what we needed to do to burn off that energy. But as an adult, she was able to talk with us, and we could share stories of how we thought things were, and she would be able to give her perspective. And we were able to see, through that mentoring relationship, exactly what it is that God needed us to know in that moment. And so bringing it all together, she would actually do something that actually incorporates all these 4 points. We would have wake-a-thons at the church. And so we'd be downstairs in the basement, and every hour we'd go up to the church and do some kind of thing, some kind of prayer with the adoration that was going on. So we would pray the rosary, for example, or read from the Bible, or pray the Stations of the Cross. And then one of us would sign up to be upstairs in that hour. Then we'd come downstairs and we'd watch movies like 10 Commandments, or, although it didn't exist at the time, Passion of Christ would be one of the ones that we would kind of do, like those kind of movies, those good old ones. We'd stay awake all that time. Another thing we would do, though, too, is we'd have fun. She let us do it. I remember one time we had about a chain of 20 people, and someone who had good shoes that reacted well to the carpet in the basement of the church would scoot along. One person of the chain would be hooked up to the screw on the light, all through the 20 people, and the person gets stuck electricity, and feel electricity go all the way through the people. It was really fun to be by the light switch. So Antonia was a wonderful gift for us in my life, and all those in the generations preceding me, because she shared herself with me and so many others in Schumann. She helped me to know myself. She helped me to know others. She helped me to know God. And by doing this, she did it by being genuine in everything that she did.